Hello, everyone, and welcome. Tom Morelli here with Wilco, and I'm joined today with Ed Job. Ed, how are you doing?
Hey Tom, I'm really good today. Thanks. I'm joining you from Chicago where it's a bit chilly and gray.
All right. Well, I'd be lying to say it's not nice and sunny out here in California, but that's how things are. So, for those of you tuning in, Ed and I recently had just really, really great dialogue about all things mortgage, all things change management, operational efficiency. And Ed, again, I appreciate you reaching out on LinkedIn. And I know you had a few really key items that you wanted to talk about and were passionate about. Why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of who you are, your background, and maybe some of those key things that you wanted to dive into today?
That sounds great. So yeah, I think you could probably class me as a mortgage industry veteran at this point. I have pre-GFC experience on my resume. A lot of that's been with large bank. A lot of that's been in operations kind of strategy. So I read with interest all your articles. First of all, are
Yeah.
really great. I love what you guys are doing there. You specifically, I read your where technology is driving ROI and where it's not article, and it just
Mhm.
really kicked off a lot of questions in my head about what kind of what I'm doing today and what you guys are doing at Wilco. But you said
Mhm.
something in the article I thought was really interesting. I'm going to read it kind of verbatim because I thought it was important. You said borrowers should be treated as a true party to the loan with the option to be as hands off or as hands on as they want to be. So first, I agree with that comment, totally. But it kind of implies a very different process than we have that's common today.
Mhm.
And so that made me think about how the industry is adopting or not technology. And kind of the first question people ask is, how come we are not as far along as other parts of the consumer lending world with technology adoption and in our process? And I read a lot of content about mortgage thought leaders and automation thought leaders. And one of the people I
Mhm.
follow is the CEO of Phoenix Burst.
Okay.
It's Tila Gallagher Matthias, I think is how you pronounce her name. I don't know her personally, but I just follow a lot of her commentary.
Sure.
But she says she sent some content out last week or so that highlighted kind of 11 reasons. And if I could summarize those, a few of them are more generic to just AI in general, automation in
Mhm.
general. And that is that it's really hard to do at scale. Yes, that's true for us. It's true everywhere in the world, I think, too. And the second one was, the data fragmentation that occurs in our industry is pretty significant.
Mhm.
Also true across other industries as well. So those are kind of generic reasons I think that we're behind. But in terms of
So I'm curious, why
mortgages,
did those two stand out to you more so than maybe some of the other items that were listed?
I think that I think the fact that it's difficult to do at scale is true. So I think there's a lot of people doing this kind of subscale. And I think the data piece is part of that reason is that the data is absolutely, if you read about this, it's absolutely critical to get that kind of in a place that you can use it reliably to do AI the way it really can be done.
Hmm.
And there are, well, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, and so you're talking about how data fragmentation and being able to scale your data to be compatible with AI kind of limits its adoption, not just for AI, but technology in general across mortgage.
Yes, and specifically to how AI is going to operate in mortgage or anywhere for that matter, it needs the data to be kind of curated in a certain way and well curated
Hmm.
to be able to learn from it in a way that's going to produce, kind of responses and decisions that are you can depend upon. And a lot of that has
Hmm.
to do with, what am I going to tell compliance or auditors when they come in and ask me why I did this? And kind of a funny story is, when we would answer more audits, there would be a lot of work to construct the path of the mortgage. And a lot of that path was simply find me the email on December 12th at 10 o'clock in the morning that said to do this. And
Hmm.
that I think if you do that, with AI and with data in a different way, it's much easier to construct that path for, kind of one of the use cases of AI.
Hmm. And so something that's interesting about that is the way that data was initially captured when mortgages were digitized were in a very specific purpose-built manner. But now there's all these other things that this industry, lenders, whomever, are trying to do with that data. But the way that systems capture it today, they're not really flexible for
Mm.
other use cases. And in the example of AI, you if you watch any podcast, you hear about that. It's data, data, data. It's the underlying data model having the right information available to be able to train these models or however you're going to be utilizing it. But if that data is being captured in a rigid manner or in a way that the information that's populating is inconsistent, you're not going to be able to get the most out of AI or whatever that technology is. So I kind of feel where what you're almost implying is the legacy systems are almost too rigid to allow for that next level of tech adoption or AI adoption.
That's a great point, and I'll just be upfront about this. I'm not an architect of legacy LOS systems. I'm a user. I'm a heavy
Oh,
user
and
of them.
LOS is one example, like
Yeah,
across the board,
yeah.
because it
But
could
as
be
an
outside of
example,
this industry as well.
totally. But as an example, the one that you're familiar with, like in spades, is that the LOS kind of products that we have out there in the market, I think, from a user standpoint, they're pretty good.
Hmm.
But I would say that there's some gaps. And I think one of the gaps is how data is handled. I mean, you guys at Wilco stood up this entire company on this premise, I think, or a premise that says there's a gap in what we have today. We want to
Yeah,
provide something better for our user community.
yeah. And it's something want to give credit where credit is due. There are, platforms where closing compliant loans, whatever, but when you're looking at the cost to originate, there needs to be that next breakthrough to
Mm.
enable this industry to get that cost, under control. Otherwise, it's just going to keep going up infinitely at this rate.
It's kind of bounced around on a trajectory that's upwards in the last several years, I think.
Mhm.
And you comment about that in the article, but Stratmore has a lot of data on this as well. But just in general, it's $11,000 to $12,000 a loan, a
Yeah.
closed loan, and there's obviously half of that is sales and marketing, which we won't talk about today because that's not in scope. But the other
Mhm.
half is operational and kind of how the loan is manufactured, and that piece is a lot of money. And I think and part of that also is it's a bad customer experience in many cases. Some
Yeah.
companies have a really good handle on this, but I would say that higher cost to originate means a lot of more manual process, which means the process experience for the customer doesn't feel as good as it could.
Yeah. And to tie it back into that quote that you liked from that article about the borrower being a true party to the loan, is that yes, there is when we think of them being a party to the loan, with Wilco, we want them to be in that same platform as anyone else. We want them to have that immediate visibility to what's going on. But I also think of them as they're the most critical stakeholder. They
Mm.
need a terrific experience. And a platform that really looks at operational efficiency and isn't resulting in duplicated efforts and constantly asking about the same information or things slip through the cracks and stuff becomes expired. So things become outdated and you have to go ask for it again. That's a poor borrower experience. So we've wanted to build a platform, and we have built the platform to minimize the chances of that happening so that the borrower truly can get that best possible experience when going through the origination process.
Yeah, speaking from a person who's fielded dozens, if not hundreds, of customer complaint calls, one of the most irritating things for a customer is to get what they perceive to be as a request for the same information. And
Yeah.
when it expires, that's completely true. And it's usually true because the originating company is dilatory in getting the tasks done and those documents expire. Sometimes it's a matter of we didn't explain it to you well enough up front, but we need more information about this topic, about your income that we didn't know we needed ahead of time. And that's a problem too, a
Hmm.
different problem. So those things occur. But to your point, that experience makes people, give us negative NPS at the end of the whole process. And they should.
Yep. And going back to that data fragmentation, we also want to lessen the opportunity of there being information that has been made potentially available, but hasn't been, I'm just going to call it put on record or made part of the loan file, where something might get uploaded into a point of sale, but never made it all the way back to the LOS. By
Or worse.
combining by combining both of those together, we want to eliminate that chance of, and at the end of the day, someone could get an email, something sitting in someone's mailbox.
Oh yeah.
Things like that can happen. Something can change last minute, unforeseen circumstance that can throw off a loan at the last minute. But the more that you can be proactive about those things and self-educate throughout your process, that if there are some of those things that can throw a wrench last minute and you have the ability to inquire about those earlier in the process so that you're not getting blindsided as frequently at the last minute and having to make those last minute course corrections. It just, again, it allows for the better borrower experience, but it just creates such a smoother operation overall because you're not having those last minute rushes where the system's running fine, but then you try to jam five things at the front of the line because something's on fire. So it helps smooth out the process end to end when you're operating in that manner.
I agree. And the idea of, well, the idea of the email thing that you brought up, there are, it's a common occurrence where a borrower sends us documents in email and it gets lost because email boxes are extensive and they're always being updated, and that's easy to lose a document or drop one. So I love that you're dealing with, kind of putting that in front of the process. I think where a really key part of customer experience is identifying these needs up front, faster, closer to the point of sale, and not closer to the point of closing, which tends to be disruptive to your point. It's a
Mhm.
really key part of what you guys are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then tying it back into the cost to originate equation, where i- if you want to move the needle on your operation, you're either cutting cost or you need to increase your revenue at a greater rate than what your costs are. And I would love to get your thoughts because when you and I spoke last, you were going to be doing some research of how could you really move that needle and reduce that cost to originate. I wanted to get some of your thoughts. I know I have my things, but wanted to give you opportunity to talk through, where your head is at and where you think lenders should be looking.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's staged. I think there are numbers of stages that have to occur, and you kind of run or crawl, walk, run to borrow, not a new expression, but certainly an
I'm
apt
going to give
expression.
you kudos because I always screw up that
I
phrase.
know.
So
I
good
almost
job.
said run, walk, crawl, which is the opposite of what we're trying to do here, but thank you for noting that, calling that out. So I think today, automation encompasses, RPA, which people have plugged in, and automated tasks that are not typically terribly value added. But a lot of companies and a lot of vendor solutions today allow you to, take docs, extract data from them, index them, kind of image them, extract data from them, make sure that data doesn't have a lot of anomalies in it, highlight things to focus on, like, large deposits or, recurring revenue streams and so forth. And so, and income calculations getting to be a thing as well with some kind of minor conditioning. So that's kind of today where the AI market is, I think, in, kind of large scope. Some folks are doing that. Some folks are not yet doing that. But that's, to me, is stage one. I did that actually in the small business lending world in 2018. So I guess 8 years ago, with a vendor that's now prominently doing the same thing in mortgage land. And
Mhm.
they were excellent, and they still are. But I mean, back then, almost a decade ago, it was technology that existed, and now I'm seeing it in mortgage land a lot. So it's kind of phase one to me is
Mhm.
kind of that, which is where a lot of folks are today. And I think, kind of going from there, we can start looking at expanding our conditioning with how we create conditions. We have this information, it's in one place. We can create conditions that help guide the processors, the LOs, the underwriters. At this point, though, once you reach that, I think it's really important, as we talked about earlier, to have a really well curated data um, extraction and data kind of
Mhm.
mesh or fabric. That's really where I see a lot of heat and light and noise and discussion around today. But in order
Mhm.
for us to move kind of past the simple task, simple condition creating into the let's let the agents do some of the work, we
Mhm.
need to have more reliable and reliably curated data. So I think
Yeah.
stage three is the data. Stage four, I think, is allowing the AI to kind of explore with what it can do with running the process a bit and letting the people know when they need to be focused on something. And
Yep.
then beyond that is anybody's guess. You see lots of kind of fantastical ideas where the agents are doing all the work and people are just making
Mhm.
sure that it's happening well. And I think we're a ways from that. But is it impossible? I don't know. Probably not. But I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah. And you bring up a really good point because there's a lot of this notion that AI can just do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you if you just AI it enough, AI will do whatever you want it to do. But that's just not the case. And there's different things that AI is inherently better at than other situations. And when it comes to investors and regulations, there's certain things that it requires the human touch, that human sign off, or it needs to be auditable. Like you can't have, well, hey, tell me how you arrived at this decision. And it's like, well, this black box in it. Okay, explain what happened in the black box. And it's like, well, it black boxed. That's
It does
not
what it
going to
does.
cut it. So it's a big conundrum because you want to push the envelope for what these tools can do, but there's also that reality and just the external forces of, okay, what really can we do with it? And going back to what you mentioned with conditions, something that we're really looking at is how do you take the concept of conditions and start to break them down and leverage the data that you know to automate what happens with it? So, for example, if there were to be a condition of we need 2 months pay stubs, and that's a condition that's out there, and the borrower just in an initial salvo of documents that came over already gave you a pay stub. Wouldn't that be cool if your platform was intelligent enough to automatically recognize that, oh, you actually have a recent pay stub? So instead of just having a condition that's going to say, hey, I need 2 pay stubs, would dynamically be able to alter and say, hey, we need a most recent pay stub for the month of whatever. And that's just one example. But if you could break that down across all the different types of conditions and leverage automation, or other intelligence throughout your platform to streamline that and enhance the communication with your various stakeholders, whether it's the borrower or other folks in your organization. Yeah, that's how you really start reducing those unnecessary manual touches, or going back to what we were talking about earlier, asking for the same information multiple times, or now they send the same information again, and you're now having to pay someone to look at something just to say, oh, wait, no, we don't need that. We already have that document. Like
That's
it's a
a
silly
great point.
case, but add that up how many times that happens in a loan across entire loan portfolios. And those like it's those unforced errors that start to add up and start to bog down your process.
That's exactly right. And your example was actually really great. I want to key off that for a second. So, but
Go for
first,
it.
your kind of explanation or description of where we could be is way better than where we generally are, as a group today. I
Hmm.
mean, again, I'm going to point out that some people are doing this really well already, and some folks are not there yet. So I want to make that, kind of comment clear. But
Yeah.
you said we need two pay stubs, and then you said the borrower a few minutes later the borrower sends in a pay stub. So this is exactly what happens in the real world in mortgage land. We say, and the processors rush, the LOs rush, and they say we need your pay stubs. Stop. And it's not like we need pay stubs from these two-week periods or these two whatevers. And
Hmm.
so the borrower is immediately sends a pay stub in, and then a week later, he needs another pay stub. He or she needs another pay stub, and that's where the frustration starts. And you're exactly right. So what's even better is when the solution says, you know, prints out a concise like direction to the borrowers. Send me these pay stubs from these companies from these time frames, and
Hmm.
that's magical. I mean, that's doable today, and that's what we should be doing. I mean, I would have a lot of discussion with my processing team and management about let's be more clear and specific and exact and precise around what we're asking for on day one. And that's always, everyone's like, of course, we're doing that. But then people make mistakes because they're busy and they're
Yeah,
stressed, and that happens.
yeah, absolutely. And so, something that just popped in my mind about that is with AI, and everyone uses ChatGPT, Claude, or whichever generative model. And you think about prompt engineering and how if you just make a blanket statement of uh, first thing that came to my mind, hey, write me a project plan. Well, it's going to start giving you a bunch of information. It's going to come up with a project plan. What's the context? What's the time frame? How detailed do you want it? But if you add just a few extra qualifying statements onto that, the nature of that response is going to be so much better. Well, look at that same scenario, like what you just mentioned. Hey, I need pay stubs versus, hey, I need 2 months pay stubs for January and December. All with just a couple words, you've provided infinite clarity to that statement. So, where throughout your process are some of those ambiguities where you are leaving it open to that individual or to the borrower to make a, hey, I think this is what they mean, so I'm just going to do that.
It's
And
open for
even
interpretation. You're
I
right.
actually had a whole conversation with another gentleman yesterday, and we were talking about that when it comes to underwriting and how
Mm.
you could probably give the same loan file to five different underwriters and potentially come up with, five different assessments, or they're going to attack that in five different ways. Inherently, no two loans are going to be the same. There's always going to be you know, some sort of give or take in one direction or another. But if you can minimize those ambiguities throughout your process or point people in the right direction and get things more, here's how we are doing this and making sure it's consistent, it improves your process across the board because you don't have those inconsistencies. And if someone has to fill in for another person, that experience is going to be consistent. And just saying that it's fun having these conversations because your mind starts going, all these things start to tie together, and you start seeing the light. I absolutely love it.
I know it's really great, and you're exactly right. And there are so many areas in mortgage production where this exact situation rises. I follow a bunch of processor underwriter chat rooms in social media. That's not
Hmm.
the right word. I just ace myself by saying the word chat room. Social media
In
places where
your
people meet.
AOL chat room.
Whatever, yeah, my MySpace page, Lord. But in kind of social media construct where a processor will ask a question. I have this situation. It's usually an income kind of question, and there'll be 40 responses, and they'll all align around like three different answers that aren't the
Mhm.
same. And so there's a lot of ambiguity because this is a very complicated question we're answering. What's the person making? What do we want to rely on?
Yeah.
And and so I think that AI can help with that because what typically happens without AI is or without the social media space that somebody at the company is really good at processing, and that person becomes a de facto, kind of the person you go to, and that's good. But it's even better when everyone has the same kind of tool, and this is some type of rag type of uh, generated answer from the buried within the manual somewhere. So here's what you do, and it's even
Mhm.
better when you curate your data as a company so that you have 1,000 kind of similarly questions that in your history that you can draw from. And so that gets better and better as you kind of collect data around that. And it just helps the entire team. And that is like what I love about this a lot is that it's going to help people do their jobs better.
Yeah.
This is an interesting question too, because one of the things I see on LinkedIn a lot is will AI come take, my job?
Mhm.
And I will tell you, the first time we did this with the small business company in 2018, we finished the kind of the proposal deck to the team, and the first question we got was, "Are you going to fire us all?" Fair question, but the answer was no, because we really wanted to just reduce the number of hours it took to render a decision, and that's what we did, and we were able to grow with less staff. So back to mortgage land and that question, I think it's a fair question. Will AI take jobs? And I think at some level, we'll probably grow, the business without growing the staff at the same level. We're at a kind of a unique
Yep.
part in the mortgage cycle now where we have a lot of lock-in and a lot of folks aren't refinancing. And I think the next time that we have the chance where we'll see a refinance boom, I think we'll have a lot more AI solution and a lot less need to go out and hire thousands of people to do this work.
Yep. You're definitely going to minimize those chaotic hire and fire
Mm.
cycles. And going back, you made an extremely a terrific point about no, we don't want to fire you. Like we want to be able to do more with our existing resources. And you're going to gain capacity as a result of this. And different things where you are specialized, like the lower level work, will probably get automated over time, but it allows you to focus on what you specialize in or to potentially cross-train and grow additional skills. And a lot of these things probably somewhere down the line is going to be the human working hand in hand with AI in some sort of capacity. But to some extent, the one that's jumping out to my mind, I keep seeing this visualization of Stack Overflow and the number of queries to it since the advent of AI has decreased by 98%. I don't know if that's truly factual, if it's sensationalist, but I can see that happening. And there are inherently going to be parts of the origination process that due to automation or just rethinking or not having to always check the checker who checked that last person, some of those functions may not be necessary anymore. But again, it's going to open the door for more of those people where you do need that human in the loop, that person who is keeping, if it's an AI agent, in check or looking at opportunities from a process improvement. It opens that next opportunity. And if you go back to when computers came around, when the internet came around, there was also that freak out. And there are positions that don't exist anymore, but there are also that many more jobs that have been created as a result and different types of specializations that have occurred. But the core piece of that, again, going back to the statement you made with all of this and tying together with reducing the cost to originate. Yes, one way to do that is to reduce headcount without sacrificing revenue. That would decrease your cost to originate. Or if you are able to grow and keep those fixed costs at a steady level, your cost to originate is going to decrease. And that's the area that we want lenders to be operating in. We know everyone wants to aggressively grow their business. We know everyone wants to acquire a new branch, a new book of business. But as you mentioned, it used to come with, hey, we've also got to hire a bunch of back office staff to try to do that, and things get imbalanced, and then maybe you don't need a few people, and it just creates chaos. But if you have a platform that is efficient and can scale efficiently, then you're really onto something. That's when you start expanding those margins.
Yeah, and I think that's right. And I think right now we're uniquely at this point in the cycle where people have done a lot of staff reduction,
Hmm.
and we still have costs that are kind of too high for what we're producing. But I think the biggest thing for me is, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to be in this discussion with how do we reduce automation or how do we increase automation and reduce cycle time and cost and improve the experience, is because I participated in and been impacted by this cycle. When we need people in this industry, we can't find them because everyone wants the same resources, and we're throwing lots of money around for people who are equipped to handle, and we're pirating from different companies, and we're all doing the same thing with each other. And then 6 months later, we have people with excess capacity, and now we have another problem, and it's very difficult to
Yeah.
disrupt people's lives like that. You know, and the human cost is real.
Yeah. Well, and even going back to other point you mentioned earlier about you've got that specialist or that your best processor who has that knowledge of just like, here's the best way to operate. If that isn't properly documented and they leave, all of a sudden there can be a vacuum of knowledge. vacuum or void of knowledge
Absolutely.
in an organization, and then you're now having to work twice as hard to build that back up. But if you are operating in a way where thing processes are more bite-sized and things lend themselves to automation or being able to be assisted with AI, and those processes are more standardized, you're not going to have as big of a gap to have to fill if your best person, so to speak, or your SME leaves, because your platform is helping you on that journey as you grow, as you adopt new products, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that SME role is so critical. Even it will be, I think it will be after,
Mhm.
kind of the AI thing, whatever it is, happens to this industry. We're still going to need that expertise because,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, that's a really important part of the production.
And so I want to jump in one more thing on that because came across this example the other day and was doing something in Excel and had forgotten how to do something with macros and was able to leverage ChatGPT to give me the information.
So
And I
you're
was able
vibe
to do
coding
it.
in
But
this
then I
spare
handed it
time.
off to a coworker who wasn't as well versed in it, and they were getting a little bit lost. And it speaks to you can't just solely rely on AI because if you're just letting it go and do whatever, you can't be a check and there's no check and balance to it. Because you need someone there who has the general idea of, let's say it interprets a guideline a certain way. If you just have an AI bot interpreting guidelines, it could just start doing whatever. It's going to sound confident. So someone who doesn't know what it's saying is just going to be like, yeah, that looks right, go for it. But that's where that SME role is still so critical
Mm.
because especially for some of these guidelines that are worded in a convoluted manner or are inherently a little bit gray, you are going to need some of that expertise to poke holes and question the results of automation, rules interpretation, or these AI models. So I know that that's also a position where people are like, oh, are SMEs still going to be needed if AI can answer everything? It's like, hell yeah, they are, because you can't just let AI run unchecked, even in the strongest of models. You need someone there to make sure that it's staying the course and operating in a way that isn't going to harm you in the long run.
Yes, and I think that's even more so in a highly regulated environment like the mortgage lending space. I
Mhm.
wish, I use ChatGPT. I buckled down and bought kind of
This is
the
not paid for by ChatGPT, by the
it's not. I
way.
will tell you because what I'm going to say next will confirm that statement because I asked it to explain itself. How do you work? And so it went through this like hour-long discussion and conversation. It was pretty good. I have to trust it because I don't know, kind of like how AI truly works at the zeros and one level.
Sure.
But when I ask it questions about mortgage production and kind of things, it gives me a really confident answer. And it's usually mostly correct. And sometimes it's just dead wrong.
Hmm.
And I'll say to it, like, that's,
Yeah.
I wish I had the confidence that ChatGPT has because, man, that thing is like completely on point. But when I call it out, it'll be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Here's what I meant to say. And it's like closer, but still wrong. And it's like,
Well,
it kind of
that's
stifles.
I love when it's like, oh yeah, whatever, and then doubles down on being incorrect.
Yeah, we're laughing at this now, but in 2 years we'll be having a different discussion. I think it's it'll get better and better. I think.
But it again, it speaks volumes to why with with AI and some of these new technologies, like it's okay to aggressively pursue it and want to be on that cutting edge of understanding and trying to push the boundaries of what it's capable.
Mm.
But you absolutely need to be very cautious in how it's implemented for that exact reason that you just said, where 9 times out of 10, it's correct. And then on that 10th time, it just does something that looks right at face value, but then that gets to an investor and they don't like what that has to say, and that gets kicked back. All of a sudden, you've got a problem on your hands.
You have a
And
huge
that's where,
problem.
yeah,
Yeah, and you said a minute ago 9 out of 10 times it's right, but 10 out of 10 times it sounds so confident in itself. Like you assume
exactly.
you start with that assumption like wow, it's a confident answer. The other thing you said that I wanted to go back to a minute ago is you talked about the black box solution.
Hmm.
As a mortgage operator, I would never want to go into a meeting with a compliance team or regulators or even the agencies in a Mora audit and tell them that I had a black box that I didn't quite know what it said. That would
Hmm.
be really bad, and that makes kind of a whole different set of questions from the regulators, about what you're doing. And so I'm confident that most of the people, who are thinking about applying AI to their process are thinking this through because it's a really critical part to get right.
Yep, absolutely. And that's where it's on a lot of us to hold each other accountable. And we are a vendor that has ICR technologies in our platform with document recognition, extraction, all of that. It's on all of us to be very straightforward about what that entails and just exposing some of that. So I think what I love is there's passion and appetite throughout this industry to want to do better and push the envelope. But it's conversations like this where we can just freely share some knowledges, that's totally a word. Uh, bump our knees along the way and just share these experiences so that we're moving in the right direction. And again, all boiling back to that concept of how do we deliver the best borrower experience? And for the lenders at large, how do we reduce that cost to originate? And I really think everything we've discussed today helps push us in that right direction. So Ed, before we depart here, any final statements or anything that you wanted to mention?
No, just really super happy to be talking with you about this topic. It's someone that I like a lot. I know you guys think about it a lot
I
over there at
appreciate
Wilco.
that.
I know you do as well, because like I said, I read all your posts and your commentary. But I think we're uniquely at a place in time where the industry is primed for this. There's a lot of momentum to kind of fix some of the problems that we have with both with tech and just mind share of how we think about the customer and employee experience. So I think this is uniquely a time and space. And I've been around this industry for more than 25 years, so I've seen a lot of people trying to do this. And I think this is kind of a unique time that we can make this work.
Yeah. No, absolutely love it. So, Ed, as we depart here, if folks want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, reach out to me via LinkedIn, and my contact information is there. I have actually weirdly, I have my cell phone and my email as part of my contact info. But happy to talk to anybody about this. I love to hear people's stories about how it's worked or how it hasn't worked for them. So anybody at all who wants to talk about this, I'm down.
Excellent. Love it. Well, appreciate everyone for joining. Again, if you want to learn more about the things we're doing at Wilco, you can reach out to us at wilco.com/more info. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. But again, thanks for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you again soon. Ed, thank you so much.